Will Luke Skywalker be back for episode 9? And could he appear as a Force ghost without a beard? A little more like the Luke we're used to seeing? And how do Force ghosts really work to begin with? Stay tuned. Okay, so the question on a lot of people's minds is Luke Skywalker coming back for episode 9? We saw him sort of disappear. It's assumed he became one with the Force in the same way that Obi-Wan did in A New Hope and Yoda did in Return of the Jedi. So that leads one to assume that he would be back, and he did give that famous line to Kylo Ren, "See you around, kid," which implies that he will be haunting Kylo Ren's dreams, or something to the extent of that. But the question is, if he does come back, in what version or style of Luke Skywalker would we see him in? Will he look like the Force Awakens and Last Jedi versions with the kind of long scruffy beard? Would he look like the version that he met with Kylo Ren on Crate? That's a little slightly younger version of Luke with the still dark hair, short cut, and the darker beard? Or would he look more like the Return of the Jedi, maybe kind of somewhere in between that era with the clean-shaven cut? Now, this all came about, the question started arising because Mark Hamill had tweeted a post recently, or I think it was an Instagram picture. He tweeted, or he Instagrammed a picture, and he grammed a picture, and it was of a beardless Mark Hamill. We have not been used to seeing that in the last several years because he was under contract to have a full beard grown out. So it leads one to wonder, is he coming back as a Force ghost without the beard? Kind of more of like the younger Jedi Master? I don't know if they could always do a little CGI to make him look younger, or they could just keep with how he looks now, but just, without a beard, kind of naturally people sort of look younger without facial hair. So that's the question. And then the deeper question is, how do Force ghosts work exactly? From everything we know up until this point, Force ghosts, well, at least up until Last Jedi, Force ghosts were sort of just able to communicate, show up in a very ghostly, translucent sort of state. They didn't really interact with much. As far as we knew, once a Jedi dies, you just automatically kind of disappear, because Obi-Wan did, Yoda did, and, that's kind of how we assumed things went until Phantom Menace, and then Qui-Gon died, and he did not become a Force ghost. He became, he had a physical body that was burned in a funeral pyre type of ceremonial burial. And that kind of changed things, because then it was like, oh, so not everyone turns into Force ghosts. They don't all just disappear. They can actually just die and remain physical. And the Force ghost thing kind of became a little more hazy. And then we realized after Revenge of the Sith that Yoda had told Obi-Wan that Qui-Gon was, I guess, the first, at least in recent times, that had figured out how to transcend death, so to speak, and communicate with the living from beyond the grave. And that was an ability that at least it was unknown about. I don't think, it seemed like Yoda didn't even know that was a possibility. So I don't know if Qui-Gon was the first ever, or at least the first in, a few thousand years that was able to figure this out. And then, as the chronology of the movies is concerned, the episodes 1 through 6, as it moves along, we see in A New Hope that Obi-Wan has then learned that power and is able to at least verbally communicate with Luke during the Death Star trench run. He communicates with him and tells him to trust his feelings, and and the Force will be with him always. And then in Empire, we actually see him in his Force ghostly form, telling Luke to first go to Dagobah, and then he's on Dagobah with Yoda. And then that leads to Return of the Jedi, where then Yoda passes away, and we see Obi-Wan have a conversation with Luke. We also see Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin, whether it's Sebastian Shaw or the special edition Hayden Christensen version. Either one, we see Anakin with them as well. And they don't interact with anything. In fact, Obi-Wan makes reference to in Empire that he can't help Luke if he's going to go fight Vader. He can't interfere. That leads us up to The Last Jedi, where we see Yoda again in a Force ghostly form, but he's a little more solid at this point. He doesn't look like the version that we saw in Return of the Jedi. And now 30 years have passed. Who knows what that means in like the ether realm, but 30 Star Wars Galaxy years have passed, and he's able to interact with something. He actually brings down lightning and burns a tree, which, kind of shook the audience because that's not supposed to happen. I thought Obi-Wan said you can't interfere, with anything. So, is this a new reveal as to the powers that a Force ghost may have, and could that impact Luke? And then we had Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, the Dave Filoni animated show. And this is going to be a little spoiler if you have not seen season 4 yet. So click off, pause, go watch it, come back. So what happens is Kanan sacrifices himself, so to speak, and he sort of comes back, not fully comes back, but his will lives on in one of the Lothal wolves were a big part of season 4. They had some sort of connection to the Force a little deeper than what most animals should have, and it seemed like Kanan almost was able to transfer his will onto one of these Lothal wolves. So that kind of indicated that a Force user's will can maybe be passed on. So that brings us to Luke. Luke could come back in Episode 9 as a Force ghost. He could take any state, possibly, that he would want to take. We saw Anakin take a younger state, his Jedi self, before he became evil. Luke could possibly become his younger self before he I guess, gave into his darker side, where he lost Ben. He made the mistakes with Ben. He could return to a slightly more Jedi Master version of himself than what we've seen in Last Jedi. And with Yoda now being able to interact with things, has the Force Ghost abilities changed? Have they become a little more powerful now? Are they able to interact with matter and the life around them? And how would that impact Luke? Would Luke be able to physically remain in form? Would he be able to use a lightsaber and battle if he wanted to? If Yoda was able to sort of learn or grow in these abilities as a Force ghost and bring lightning down on a tree and impact the physical realm, why wouldn't Luke be able to do the same thing? This could be a way that JJ may use to kind of give us the Luke that we wanted in Last Jedi. It's a possibility, and kind of an exciting one. I'd love to know what you guys think of this. Do you think it would be an interesting idea if Luke had become a little more than what we've previously seen the Force Ghost be able to do? Do you think a Force Ghost lightsaber wielding Jedi would be kind of interesting, or do you think they should just kind of keep with the traditional version of a Force Ghost and not try to do too much or go too far into new abilities in the last movie of the sequel trilogy? I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you liked the video, give it the old thumbs up and subscribe to see more content. And until next time, lock the doors and hope they don't have blasters.